Hello there, one and all, and thank you very much for tuning in to episode 577 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube. As always, for the benefit of those watching live, this is the second of two videos. It's the final video for today, where we're going to do a run through of some of the gaps, not all of the gaps because I haven't got all of the perfumes, but some of the gaps in my Parfums De Nicolai collection, and I will explain why in a moment. Alex is here with first comment saying New York was wonderful. I totally agree. Hello everyone. Gichunk is here too saying hello. More fun, says Rachel. Hi again, says Natasha. I gasped when you said Nicolai, says Eliza. I adore the brand. Well, it is an adorable brand, a very, very easy to adore brand. I'm loving this brand, says Mace. Thank you for the introduction. Oh, I'm so pleased you like it. A serious brand, says Kim. Yes, and it genuinely is that, isn't it? Natasha says, I'm not keen they went on a big gourmand tip lately. Well, we'll talk about that. Hugo says, where'd you get the t-shirt? This was from Zara. They did a limited Gruau collection, but quite some time ago. Maybe 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, something like that. I love their Nicolai's older stuff, says Natasha. Okay, so if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do consider doing so. Click on the little bell so that you get notifications about new videos. And if you'd like to find out how you can support my work, you should be able to see a link to my Ko-fi page in the video description below. And if you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment, ask a question anytime. Okay, right. Oriana says, Patricia De Nicolai awarded Le Prix de la Contribution à la Profession. Is that, what is that, a fact or... Anyway, so I talked about this brand, Nicolai, just very, very recently. I mean, I think within the last 2 weeks, because they've done a Harrods exclusive called Patchouli Spirit. Really, really beautiful piece of work. And it suddenly occurred to me that I don't talk about their work enough. Patricia De Nicolai is a... oh, we had this discussion last time and I can't remember. I believe she is a niece of Jean-Paul Guerlain. Anyway, she is a definite family relation of Jean-Paul Guerlain. And for whatever reason, maybe because she started being stocked at Harrods recently and they've done this Harrods exclusive, suddenly the brand is gaining a little bit more prominence in the UK. She's coming over to the UK to do a Meet the Perfumer event at Harrods, which I'm really, really, really annoyed not to be able to make. But if you can go along, please do. If you just search for Harrods Meet the Perfumers events, then you will get all of the information. I'm pretty sure it's next week some point, so week beginning 21st or whatever that week is. And I thought I really ought to look at which ones I've reviewed over the years. And I went onto my index, which is just about up to date, and I was quite pleased to see that there are quite a few that I've reviewed. So I thought, okay, there's no point digging out those bottles and reviewing them again. So very, very quickly, you need to go to persolaise.com and go to the Perfume Reviews Index if you would like to hear or read reviews of Amber Oud, Ombre Cashmere, Cuir Cuba Intense, Incense Oud. I love Incense Oud. I will tell you that Incense Oud is amazing. Le Corail, which I would love to top up actually. Some of these are discontinued. That's the thing that's sad about Nicolai, is that a lot of their perfumes disappear. Musc Intense, New York Intense or Intense, which is the intense version of New York. I still think probably they're their best perfume, and New York is just beautiful. Oud Sublime, which was a crazy expensive oud when it came out. I don't know if they still make it, but it was really, really good. Riviera Verbena, Rose Oud, Rose Royale, and Weekend à Deauville. They're all on persolaise.com. Patchouli Spirit, the Harrods exclusive, was done a little while ago. So I thought, okay, let's go through the collection and do some gaps. More Violette says, will you cover Macaron Bourbon? I'm mainly curious because I've heard so many bad things about that scent. It surprised me because I generally think highly of Nicolai. Okay, I think we should start with those because in 2024, Patricia De Nicolai surprised people a little bit, and she released 3 gourmand scents. One inspired by macarons, one inspired by a Pavlova, and one inspired by the Saint-Honore patisserie, which is a sort of, how do you describe a Saint-Honore? I mean, it's got hazelnut, it's got a kind of creamy hazelnutty filling, but what's the thing that holds it? It's choux pastry, isn't it? Isn't it a choux pastry ring, is essentially? Somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure a Saint-Honore is choux pastry. Or as a French pastry chef that we know of quite correctly called pâte à choux, and it took me ages to work out what he was saying because he kept telling me that something is made with pâte à choux, and I thought, what the heck is a pâte à choux? And then I understood that it's pâte à choux. And choux pastry, says Oriana. Okay, yeah, I thought it was choux. Right, let's sort out the blotters here. And people were a little bit surprised that Nicolai was doing gourmand, and it felt like she thought maybe she ought to. And I remember at the time thinking, well, if she's doing them, they're going to be really good, they're going to be interesting. But they're not my favourite Nicolais, and I would love to know how they've done, because it was almost like when she was making them, she couldn't quite. She's. I don't know what she's like in person. I've only met her once, and she was lovely. She was pleasant. But the image she presents is of somebody who is very much establishment France, conservative France. She can't be, entirely conservative establishment, because she has gone out there and done lots and lots of things that women haven't done. I'm pretty sure she's the first female president of the Osmotek, setting up her own perfume brand, being a businesswoman, etc., etc. So, I'm sure beyond the image, beyond the facade, there is a complex, multifaceted, multi-layered human being. But the image that the brand presents as well is of something that is elegant and classical in a very, very French, in a very Western European way, and quite conservative. And I think she plays to those qualities as strengths. Her best perfumes are the ones where she follows a classical structure of top, middle and base. She uses beautiful materials, and the thing with the really, really good Nicolai perfumes is that she pays attention to the dry down. She realizes and she knows that a perfume is not just about those top notes that get people to get their, their credit cards and their wallets or their phones out. So, the really, really beautiful, gorgeous, in many cases original Nicolai perfumes have just the most knee-weakening, gorgeous dry downs, and it's wonderful and heartening to know that we still have a perfumer who appreciates the beauty of the dry down. I'm not sure that with those gourmand ones she really gave as much time and attention, or maybe even interest to them. It felt like maybe she thought she had to do them. Rachel says 100% on the Nicolai dry downs. I know. I mean, they're really, really something else. So let's go through them quickly. I definitely have a favourite. Let's do the Pavlova first. Now, I'm assuming that Pavlova is the same things in most countries. So that's a meringue dessert with a creamy strawberry and kirsch filling. And I think I'm right in saying that if we're being really, really purist about it, for a Pavlova to be a Pavlova, it has to be strawberry. I mean, you can do what you like, but I think, if we're being really, really strict about it, then it's got to be strawberry. In Poland, people love lots of meringue desserts, but they go really, really crazy with their fillings. Coffee and pistachio, mascarpone cream, mascarpone filling. And if you ever go to a Polish coffee shop and you see the meringues, do be tempted by them, because they tend to be really, really good. But they're not Pavlovas. And I think even if you're in Poland, all of the other ones are called like meringue desserts, but when you see the strawberry one, it's a Pavlova. Natasha says raspberry. See how I thought it. Anyway, so this is the Pavlova, and what I get from it is a lot of pineapple and a lot of passion fruit, but really not a lot of not a lot of meringue or cream. I think, from memory, one of the best sort of creamy notes that we've had in perfumery is the chantilly cream paired up with the tuberose in Amouage's Love Tuberose. I think cream works well there as well. And there are other perfumes that sort of convey that whipped cream. Olivier Crespe's Bake for Acro has got a very, very convincing creamy note. Somebody's asking about discovery sets. Yes, certainly their UK website has a very, very reasonably priced discovery set, which, if the image of it is anything to go by, is really generous. I think you get a lot of samples for something like £40 or just under £40. If you know, the bottom line, even though I may not be as complimentary about some of these as I will be the others, bottom line, if you haven't tried Nicolai's works, you know, this is a brand that needs to go right up to the top of your must-try list, because they're, you know, she's a class act. Patricia De Nicolai is a class act, and her work at its best is extraordinary, second to none. But yeah, the Pavlova, you know, I'm not a massive fan of passion fruit, you know, to eat or in desserts, but it's just coming across as a bit of a sickly sweet fruit salad, fruit cocktail type thing, rather than a Pavlova. I don't have a huge amount to read about them, you will be relieved to know. It is meant to be pineapple, passion fruit and vanilla, and it is kind of as sickly as that sounds. Patricia De Nicolai herself says Pavlova was inspired by the lightness of that famous dessert. Each fruit and cream note mirrors the joy and spontaneity of celebration. But this isn't light, you know, this is actually really quite sickly. Another one that I'm not sure works all that brilliantly is the Macaron Bourbon. I mean, it could be that I'm not actually crazy about macarons. I mean, you know, if they're there, I will have them, and if they're good quality, I will enjoy them. But it's never ever my sweet snack of choice. Never. We have a little person in our family who loves it when I bring back for her some macaron from La Durée. And I do still think, even though La Durée in many ways has so gone downhill in the UK, not in Dubai, incidentally. La Durée in Dubai, or certainly at least in Dubai Mall, maintains the high standards that La Durée in London used to have several years ago. So explain that one to me. But anyway, I still think their macaron are quite good. I love Paul's macaron, says Gavin. I know what you mean. So the macaron one is fresher, lighter, nowhere near as sickly. But I'm also not sure what kind of macaron it's meant to make me think of. This one is meant to be almond, spices and caramel. I mean, okay, macaron are made with ground almonds. Nearly horrific story. A few years ago, I don't know if I've ever told this story on this channel before, I was at Fortnum and Mason's, you know, the famous department store which has a beautiful food department in London, and there was a North American tourist queuing up in front of me for the sweet counter, and he says to the person working behind the counter, pointing at the macarons, do these have nuts in them, because I'm allergic to nuts? And this rather hapless young woman working behind the counter says, no, she's looking and says, no, there's no nuts at all. And I was about to step in, because we also have another little person in our family who has severe allergies to all sorts of things, including nuts. So my radar is very, very sensitive to that sort of thing. I was about to step in, but this sales assistant supervisor stepped in and said, sorry, no, they are full of ground almonds. They are basically ground almonds. And I thought, phew, okay. Tragedy averted, disaster averted. But I don't get that kind of cyanide almond extract feel to it. To me, it's kind of jammy. Maybe it's more about a sort of rosy, jammy filling that a macaron has. Why did I think Macaron Bourbon had heaps of rose? Because it probably is quite rosy. I think you may well be right. And she says Macaron Bourbon is the fruit of my love for French patisserie. The combination of almond, rum and caramel recalls the sense of a kitchen alive with warmth and creativity. But rum... Phoenix 7777 says this good. Who is this Phoenix with 4 sevens who's saying that this is good? Mace says it had that deep, dark, sweet, boozy rose, and not in a good way. Well, it's Yeah, it's forgettable. I must have misremembered, says More Violette. What had you misremembered? Why did I think of mine? No, I think it is quite rosy. I think it is quite rosy, but not particularly interesting. The last of the gourmands, the last of the three gourmands, is probably the one that I found the most compelling. But you know, it's not the highest bar, just because of its top note. It's the Saint Honore, which is that choux pastry hazelnut dessert. Again, in case you're wondering, I should start a food blog. Or so. Actually, I have written about food on my Substack. I think at the moment one of the best Saint Honores you can get in London is at Philippe Conticini, right by South Kensington Tube Station, and also actually one of the best pain au chocolat. He does the most amazing hazelnut pain au chocolat. Anyway, Saint Honore, yeah, the hazelnut is a tough note to do in perfumery because quite often it feels unconvincing and overly dry and somehow sour, but this really, really makes you picture hazelnuts. You can picture their skin, you get that kind of slightly oily feeling that they have, and there is something of, I guess, a kind of dryness or the texture of choux pastry. I'm not a huge fan of choux pastry. In fact, it's probably my least favourite pastry, so I'm never bothered about having eclairs. A lot of you may be aware of a French pastry called the Religieuse, which is basically like two big fat filled profiteroles, aren't they? With either a sort of chocolate filling or a coffee filling. That's one of Madame Persolaise's favourite, but I can take it or leave it. I'm not that fussed. To me, choux pastry hasn't got enough crunch. My favourite pastry to have for a patisserie is flaky pastry. But you do get that kind of aerated, slightly dry quality. Mind you, I do love churros, but then, you know, pretty much anything deep fried is going to be good. This one was a bit l'homme idéal, says Gavin. Oh, I know what you mean there, actually, yes. But I think it's the most convincing, the most, you know, ticks the boxes one of the three, and the least sickly, the most attractive to wear. And what they say about it is that it contains orange blossom, hazelnut and vanilla. And the quote from Patricia De Nicolai herself is that she says that this is a tribute to the patisseries of my childhood in Paris. Bergamot, hazelnut and vanilla transform memory into scent, evoking warm kitchens and early morning delight. It's fine. It's fine. The Gourmand Trio, I don't think, is the brand's finest hour. But now we can move on. One that I've never talked about on the channel, and I don't know why. I got this bottle when I treated myself to a bottle of New York Intense in Paris, because they were doing this sort of, you know, buy 100 mils, get a sort of, what is this size actually? Is it 10? No, it's got to be more than 10, hasn't it? No, I can't see now. But whatever this size is, you know, they said, you know, get one of these for free. And so I went for Cap Neroli, 15 mils, says Mace, thank you very much, which is from 2018. And as you can see, I wore it a lot, and then I decided I'd better save the last few drops. This one is still on their website. These three that I'm going to be talking about are still on their website. A lot of Nicolai's have gone. And this is polar opposite of the three that we've just been talking about. Oh, the offer is still there, says Mace. Ah, interesting. Maybe it's just a thing they always do in their Paris boutiques. Interesting. It's a good offer. It's a very tempting offer. Polar opposite of the Gourmands, because this is classic Nicolai in many ways, because she could have gone for a very, very easy, breezy, accessible, pleasant, undemanding Neroli that you just kind of spritz on without thinking. She has got she's got a very, very, very convincing Neroli note in here. It is kind of bolstered as well by a beautiful kind of petit grain note, so you get the kind of metallic quality of the orange blossom, you get the diffusiveness of the Neroli, you get the sort of slightly carnal aspect of the Neroli, but she also doesn't hold back with the indolic notes, and she's given us something that is essentially a kind of refreshing, light summer cologne, but she manages to make it interesting. She manages to make it different from most other scents like this. And I think it's because she's gone all out with the indoles. Now, the indolic notes are the ones that smell of mothballs to people who know what mothballs smell like, but indoles are molecules that are present naturally in white flowers. So jasmine can be quite indolic, neroli can be quite indolic. I suppose tuberose and ylang ylang a little bit less indolic, but jasmine and neroli certainly. And it's a kind of quality that catches you in the back of the throat. But it's what makes the scent compelling, interesting, distinctive, different. And this one is no exception. And I need to replenish the bottle actually. What do they say about it? It contains orange blossom and jasmine, which I'm sure it does. Cap Neroli is a tribute to the cultivation of bitter orange trees that bloom on the Côte d'Azur, where the earth meets the sea with a unique sensuality. I imagined the scent of a sunlit tip of land plunging into the sea. This perfume captures the essence of this unique landscape. The fresh and delicate notes of neroli, blended with the warmth of the earth and a salty breeze, are an invitation to dive into the wild and enchanting beauty of the Mediterranean. And that really is this scent. I couldn't have described it better myself. It's a really, really fascinating contrast between sweet and dry and bitter. And well, distinctive, I think, is the word. One of the most distinctive cologne type scents out there. Next, from 2008, we have the intense version of a scent that originally came out in 1993. So in 1993 she did Sacrebleu, and then in 2008 we had this intense version of Sacrebleu. Another real kind of Nicolai classic. I should do the pre-sprayed. Actually, let's do the pre-sprayed blotters so far. So let's do pre-sprayed gourmands. So this is pre-sprayed Pavlova. Yeah, it's still a kind of sickly sweet fruity thing, not particularly interesting. Pre-sprayed Macaron. Actually, going into ever so slightly woody ambery territory. Yeah, again, not one of our favourites. And then pre-sprayed Saint Honore. Sacrebleu is such a beautiful tuberose. Says we're going to get to it. Pre-sprayed Saint Honore. The Saint Honore is the best of the gourmands, no question. It feels the most naturalistic. It feels the most gentle, the least forced. It's got that. It meets the brief because it's got the lightness of the pastry there, but the real nutty quality of the topping. That's the one that's the success. And who knows, maybe that's the one that she did first, and perhaps somebody in her marketing department says, you know, Patricia, you really ought to do a trio of gourmands because you don't really do gourmands. Anyway, so that's the one to check out. And pre-sprayed Cap Neroli. Yeah, it is very much a cologne type scent, so it doesn't stick around forever, but you do still detect that dryness, that indolic quality of the orange blossom. The Cap Neroli is beautiful. Anyway, Sacrebleu. Look at the colour of that juice. I bet you that is not artificially coloured. Here we go. Sacrebleu is such a great L'Heure Bleue flanker, says Thomas. Ah, interesting. Okay. I love Sacrebleu Intense, says Sandra. Once the fruity opening fades away, it reminds me of Metallica by Guerlain. Another Guerlain reference. Okay. See, thank goodness we still have people like Patricia De Nicolai working. You can just tell that this is the kind of scent that's going to take you on a journey. You can just tell this is the kind of scent where, you need to slow down, you need to be patient, you need to say, okay, we'll start at the top, work our way through to the middle, and then see what happens at the end. And it's no surprise, but this is one of the original scents from 1993. So that means that her brand was only about sort of 4 years old then, 4 or 5 years old. You start feeling that you're heading into tuberose territory. Now, Metallica. Guerlain's Metallica. Is that the one? Because we do know that Guerlain love reissuing the same perfume in lots of different names. Was Metallica the same one that also had an existence as Mahora, which was also Mayotte? That, kind of ill-fated big tuberose that actually, I think, in some contexts, didn't work too badly at all. I mean, it was like a kind of uber tropical coconutty tuberose, but sometimes it worked. Was that Metallica? I can't remember. It got sued by the band, says Natasha. Oh, by the band Metallica. Imagine being sued by Metallica. But I wonder if that was the one. If that was the one that... Metallica was Metalis, I think. I think you're confusing, says Gavin. Oh, maybe I am. Okay, well, scrap that. But this has got... You feel that maybe it's got a kind of orange blossom tuberose thing happening in there, but nothing is overdone. It must have been a little bit of an anomaly in 1993, because in some ways it actually feels like a late 70s, early 80s scent with how rich and abstract it is. You know, early 90s, things like Eternity and Escape and L'Odyssée were all the rage. I mean, I know we had Angel, but that took a while to be successful. It's powdery, vanillic, and very, very, very kind of richly coloured. I don't get the Sacrebleu reference, but then that's probably because I don't speak French. What do they say about it? They say that it contains tuberose, cinnamon and vanilla. Yes, definitely. Which is a nod, it is a nod to things like opium and cinnabar. I suppose actually it is kind of like her cinnabar in a way, maybe, via a Guerlain. The website says, Sacrebleu is my passion for intense emotions, where romanticism meets theatricality. White flowers, clove and cinnamon form a fragrant aria full of depth and style. A richly lyrical trail that evokes the refinement of a bygone era. And it does. I think even in 1993 it would have felt like the kind of thing that wasn't made much anymore. And it's the powderiness of the base that's really beautiful. Let's just go straight to the pre-spray blotter. It's I think it's quieter than you think it's going to be with that list of ingredients. But it's just so elegant and so aristocratic somehow genuinely aristocratic. And then, appropriately enough, we end with the very first perfume she ever made. But this is the intense version. So number 1 was her first perfume. It came out in 1989. I don't know when the intense version came out, but I would imagine it came out around about the same time as all of the other intense versions, which was, I think, sort of 2007, 2008, 2009. This also, even though it came out in 89, feels like... Oh, gosh. Or mist spray. Feels like an older sort of scent. It again feels like, you know, late 70s, early 80s, because it's quite grand, it's quite opulent, it's rich with the white florals and more indolic. See, I get more of an old school Guerlain thing in this one. And I think maybe that's because of the orange blossom. This one's got some real personality to it, some real heft to it. The Sacrebleu is quieter, gentler, more powdery. This has got some projection, and it's also reminding me of something else. I wonder if it's reminding me of an orangey amouage. Which was the orangey ones? Was it Portrayal or was it Imitation? I get so confused. You know that era when we had Portrayal, Imitation, Journey. I lost track of a little bit of the ones, but which was the sort of retro one? Maybe that was Imitation Woman that I'm thinking of. I can't remember. But this has definitely got a kind of old school vintage white floral feel. What do they say? They say that this contains tuberose, jasmine and sandalwood. A generous bouquet of white flowers resting on a creamy base of sandalwood and animalic nuances, Patricia De Nicolai's very first creation. She says creating number 1 was about capturing the perfection of florals. This white flower bouquet represents the excellence and purity I strive for in every creation. And yes, it is that. It is this most beautiful bouquet, and I suppose that's why it's also making me think a little bit of Jean-Claude Ellena's Jour d'Hermès for Hermès, you know, because that was a beautiful bouquet. Offenlich says, probably Imitation Woman is what I'm thinking of. That has aldehydes and an old school mix of florals. Maybe it was Imitation. I love this one, says Rachel. How strong is the galbanum in it, says Alex. I don't particularly get a greeny thing. I mean, it's green in the sense that a lot of florals are green. I mean, it's not a green galbanum-y sort of scent, but it's a beautiful floral bouquet. Gavin says, New York got totally reformulated at one point. Do not think you're getting the scent Luca Turin loved in the guide. I had 2 30ml bottles of that version and emptied them quick. Okay, interesting. I do love whatever is currently being sold as New York Intense. Thomas says, number 1 actually has a similar structure to Chanel number 5. Although it's not as aldehydic, though, is it? I mean, you don't get the powder puffs of the aldehydes in there at all. I get a lot of galbanum in the opening, says Eliza. I get some. I wouldn't say that I get a lot. You know, I'm not kind of thinking number 19 levels of galbanum. And pre-sprayed blotter for number 1. Yes, just a note perfect, really, really elegant. And again, that word aristocratic, refined. There is something very, very kind of endearingly upper classy about these creations. Lovely work. And I'm so glad that finally in the UK, the brand is getting more recognition. Okay, I think we are done. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for all the comments and all the questions and all the help and all the information. Stay tuned to social media for info about more videos coming your way. Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye now.